Alex Linton, and I am the photographer of Ignited Soul Expressions, and I am starting a blog series called Behind the Lens. And I wanted to start this blog series to highlight other local photographers in Jacksonville that I admire and I think are kind of dope. And so today I am kicking off that series with Ava Cloudz. So introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Ava Cloudz. I am the photographer for PhotosbyCloudz. I also go by Ava or Cloudz, Avianca, whichever. So yes, I answer to them all.
Okay. And then how did you come up with the name Ava Cloudz?
Actually, it was from my best friend. He would always see me, and we used to work together at Target. And he would always see me, and he was like, "You always walk around like your head is in the clouds." And so he was just like, "You always seem like you're like dreaming or just like not focused." And so he would just start calling me Ava Cloudz, and I don't know why, I just liked it so much. So one day he just took off Ava, and he was like, "What's up, Clouds?" And so I was like, I liked it even more. So I decided to just run with it. So shout out to my best friend Eric for that.
It just kind of stuck. Yes. Okay, and then how long have you been doing photography?
I've been doing photography for about 4 years now. Yeah, I think it's about 4 years now. It's been a really fun journey. All 4 years, I've learned more. Learned a lot more about it every year. So yeah, it's about 4 years.
Okay, and then what was it that initially made you like get into photography and start?
So I took a trip with my friends to California, and actually I just had like my iPhone and I was on Snapchat. We were just in California, and I was just taking so many pictures. I love LA, so every chance I got, I was just stopping and taking pictures. And I wasn't thinking anything of it. I was taking pictures of my friends. We would be on Venice Beach, just taking pictures. We were on the Santa Monica Pier. We were taking pictures. And I would give them back to my friends, and they were just like, "These angles are just everything." And I was like, not thinking anything of it. And then I decided to post some of them. And I remember one of my friends was like, "Did you do this on a camera?" And I was like, "No, this is all just a phone." And she was like, "The angles are perfect." So ever since then, I decided to go ahead and, just dabble into it to see how, I really feel when I get a camera. And so it was just fun, and it was just basically like, my motto is like, forever taking memories so they can last forever. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did, and I just love that, like, I'm able to create what I see from my eyes into something so beautiful. So yes.
Okay, so at what moment did you say like, okay, I'm gonna go get this camera and like just start taking pictures? Like,
let's see. It's actually a very funny, sad story, I guess we could say, because I remember the day exactly. I had just, unfortunately had a breakup, and one day I was just like, I'm sad and I'm bored. I just want to like not feel like this. And so I remember laying in bed, and I was just like, what can I do to not feel this way? So I was like, I'm going to go out and buy me a camera. So I got up that day, went to Target, bought my first camera. It was a Canon Rebel T6. Got my first camera, and that same day I went out and I started shooting, and I was just like, I don't feel sad, I'm not bored, and this is what I love to do. And I get that feeling every time I pick up a camera. So I knew that day was when I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is what helps me feel happy, better, like alive. Right. So yeah.
That's cool. 'Cause I always have this thought of like creativity is kind of what makes people thrive, what makes them live, and like you find yourself kind of like in that, and you develop it like the more you get into it.
Yes.
So it sucks that like it came after a breakup, but it's like the perfect transition, because it's like sometimes at your low moments, that's when you kind of get inspired to go to your next step.
Right. And that's what I always do. No matter what I'm going through, I could be going through some of the most hardest moments in my life. And one thing I told myself that I'll never do is I'll never give up on photography, because no matter how I feel, photography is going to always make me feel better. So yes, that's why I'll never give up.
Oh, good. Because photography is not easy.
It isn't.
Like, it's definitely a learning curve. Like, so are you self-taught?
Yes, I am self-taught.
Yeah, me too. So it's like definitely like a learning curve of like getting in there. So do you shoot in manual?
Yes, I do shoot in manual. I tried to shoot in automatic one time, and I was just like, this isn't for me. I like to have a lot of control, so manual all the way. I love to be able to like have the option to be like, well, I don't like how this light looks, so let me go ahead and change it. Whereas an automatic is kind of like, you're giving what I'm giving to you.
Right. So I started off kind of shooting in automatic and like playing with some of the other settings, but once I did learn manual, it was like, no, there's no going back.
None whatsoever.
Because it's like you said, you do have like a lot more control over the lighting and how it looks, and if you want it to be a little bit more moody or a little bit more bright and light, like you totally have control over that. So like, what was your experience in like learning how to learn more about your camera or work it? Did you do YouTube? Did you talk to people you know? Did you read? Like, what'd you do?
A lot of reading. It was a lot of reading. I had this issue where I'm a little shy, so asking for help kind of just was like the last thing I do. But reading, a little bit of YouTube. I did, however, go to one photography class hosted by Blue Francois and Greg Bell a couple years ago, and it was, you know, learning how to shoot in the studio, and that really opened my eyes to, you know, studio photography. But not only that, being able to play with my settings and to learn more about, you know, how to shoot and how to be better, how to be able to capture, you know, things with certain angles and certain light. So that helped. But mostly, I would say a lot of reading. I have a somewhat of a short attention span, so YouTube, like, it's just kind of like, get to the point.
Right.
So I try to do YouTube now because I'm still also learning. Now I'm being more open to watching YouTube. So sometimes I'll find myself, I'll sit at home, make a cup of coffee, and I'll put on YouTube something about photography just to, you know, gain that knowledge and information. Okay,
so you said you started off with the Rebel T6, but what is your current gear now?
My current gear is the Canon 77D. That's my body, and then my 35 millimeter Sigma Art lens. Love that. That's now, granted, I'm trying to upgrade the body to a full frame because I heard that like my lens on a full frame is just immaculate, so I'm waiting to get there. But that's what I use. My Sigma lens is just like my baby. It gives me the look, the feel, the like everything I want. Like everything. It's just so perfect. So that's what I use now.
Yeah, once you upgrade to like a full frame camera, it's amazing. Like
I'm waiting. I'm getting there.
That's what I shoot with now. I shoot with the Canon Mark 5D too. It's an ancient camera at this point because things are upgrading all the time. But when I got to the full frame, it's like just completely different because you, at that point, it's like you can do a lot even more with your angles because you're seeing the full picture, so you don't have to like worry about really trying to make it work. It happens. So do you shoot with like other lenses? Like, is it 35 just like your signature lens, or do you like experimenting with other ones?
My 35 is always my go-to, even when I feel like my 35 should not be used in this particular setting. Yes, but I do also use the 24 to get that wide angle look. I also have a 35 macro, so if I want to like get real close up, I'll do that. Like right now I'm in the process of teaching myself food photography and working with plants, so I use that. But 9 times out of 10, if you see me, it's always that 35 Sigma. Even like 35. I know some other photographers will look at me and be like, "That's not the correct lens you should use here." I was like, "We gonna make it work."
Right. So I like the 35, but I think my 2 favorite lenses probably would be like the 50 millimeter and the 85.
Yes.
Like something about those 2 to me are just like the perfect kind of like portrait pictures, like the cleanness, the crispness of them, like the bokeh, all of that.
Yes.
So like those are probably like my 2 favorite ones to shoot with. So my next question is, what type of sessions do you currently shoot?
I actually do it all. I do wedding, events, on location studios. I do food photography. I'm starting to add that now. I do stuff for branding. I have no limits. So like if somebody needs something done and they can't seem to find a photographer and they're like, "Hey, do you do this?" I was like, "Yeah, I do it." Sometimes, you know, even if it's my first time, I always make sure I be like, "This is my first time doing it," but I can at least say I've shot at least once or twice in each service that I offer. So yeah.
That's cool. So out of all those different services and sessions that you've done, which ones are like your favorite to shoot?
Anywhere on location. I feel like I can, anywhere on location that allows me, because I'm really right now more focused on, like, I do all types of photography, you can say, but I'm really more focused on conceptual right now because my imagination, my mind is just like all over the place. So I have so many ideas. So if I can just go out to a location, stare at it, pull out something great from it, that's what I do. So if anybody's like, yeah, I just want to shoot here and do this, and I have an outfit, I have a concept, and I'm like, let's do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love other sessions like weddings and stuff like that. You know, that's cute, and events. I like going out to events because it gives me also another chance to network. But anywhere where I can just put my creative mind to work and really just get the creative juices flowing, usually it's location, or sometimes even in studios, but on location where I can be out in nature, anywhere, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, because I've seen a lot of your work, and when I see your work, it does have like these dope kind of like concepts. They're very like artsy, kind of editorial feel to me, which is kind of like what I like about your work. And I'm kind of the same way. Like, I probably don't shoot enough like that, but like in my brain, I'm like, yeah, so I have this concept, but I haven't gotten into it yet. But I love photographers who are kind of like more artsy with their photos, and so that's kind of like why I vibe with you. So okay, so you were saying that you like to shoot outside, which I agree, because I was taught manual like shooting outside versus like in a studio. So studio is cool, but it's, you know, sometimes the lights can be intimidating because you want it to be just right. Like, you don't want it to be too bright or like not bright enough, or like people's skin looking oily. You can see more flaws in studio than you can outside. So I'm just like you, outside's always better, a lot more flexibility.
Exactly.
But, you know, there's like pros and cons to both. So my next question is, what is your favorite editing system? Like, what do you use to edit?
So I use Lightroom. I like it. Lightroom is, again, straightforward. The presets, I'm starting to use presets, so I still try to keep more hands-on when I use my presets. But my favorite is Photoshop. The endless possibilities of things you can do with Photoshop is just amazing. As far as down to retouching, as far as like, you can literally change somebody to look completely different from how they looked before. Like, it's just, I just love it. I love everything about it. I'm teaching myself because I actually, a while ago, I did graphic design. So I would do like graphic design in high school and like blend little photos. Nothing too serious, but I was using PaintShop. And I was like a master in PaintShop. You're going to tell me nothing about PaintShop. And then when I got to photography, somebody was like, you're going to have to start using Photoshop. And I was like, what? They were like, yeah, PaintShop is just, they was like, we don't understand how you can sit here and use PaintShop and then go to Photoshop and be so lost, because PaintShop just has so much stuff all over the place. Because I'm really one of those editors that like, and I know it's bad because like sometimes I can have like 7 sessions and I'm like, but I'll go the long way of doing the steps in Photoshop than to like just make it easier for me. I don't know, that's just how I learned. So with Photoshop, it's just like so many things that you can do, so many like cool things, like down to font, how to retouch your photos, how to like fix, you know, just anything. So that's my favorite, Photoshop all day long.
Okay, yeah, I use Photoshop, but I mostly stay in Lightroom. So when I go to Photoshop, it's for like those like intricate edits, like something with the skin is wrong, or like something in the background is just like a little off, or like some kind of like shading or coloring. That is literally the only time I use Photoshop. For the most part, like, I live in Lightroom. I've tried, what is it called? AI something. Luminar. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it, never used it.
So I tried that one a couple times, and it's not too bad. It's similar to Lightroom, but it's a lot more of like, I would recommend that if you're like a beginner photographer and you're just looking to kind of like give you something to kind of like start to make it look good. But definitely Lightroom and Photoshop if you want a little bit more like detail control of like how you would edit. And so you said you use presets. Did you make your own? Did you buy presets or what?
I bought them. And then what I would do is, even sometimes like when I'll go and do an edit and I think it's really nice, and I was like, oh, I want to keep this for like, let's say if I do a session and I want all the photos to look exactly the same, and if I do something myself, like I go in and do my own little editing in Lightroom, I'll save it, so then I'll see if I can use it in the future. But yes, I do buy them. When I do buy them, I make sure not to just like like if I bought the preset and I apply it to the photo and just leave it, I do want to go in and like tweak it just a little bit, just, you know, to make sure that I also put my own little touch on it,
right.
you know what I'm saying?
Like
Just,
your own.
yeah, so that sort of thing. Although it may not be 100% my own edit, but I go in and make it, you know, make sure that I'm, you know, I may not like how the exposure looked on that preset, so let me just go ahead and adjust it a little bit, you know. So that's what I make sure I do that every time.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I have bought presets in the past, and like they worked up to a point, and then I was just like, this isn't working anymore.
Yes.
Like it became literally like hit or miss, and then I just had to start like getting a little bit more comfortable, like going in there, experimenting, and kind of like doing my own thing. So now there are literally like 3 that I use that are mine, and they like, I'm so happy that I was like, okay, they work, and I have to do like tweaking here, tweaking there kind of thing. And then like, you know, you shoot so much, you just start making like, you know, sub ones that just, you know, kind of fit whatever. But having presets do save you a lot of time, unless you are one of those people who just like enjoy the editing process like you.
Yes.
Every once in a while I'm like, let me save myself some time.
Exactly.
and kind of do that. Okay, so you said you were self-taught, so what has been like the hardest thing about being self-taught versus like formally trained?
I guess it's finding out. For me, it was finding out what more I needed to know. When I felt that I got to a point where I was like, oh, okay, I think I got the hang of it, and then something will come along, or somebody will ask me something, or I'll see somebody do something, I'm like, I didn't know that I needed to do this. Like, so one issue that I was having was with studio. When I started to do studio, I was just kind of like, I would always like put a manual and I'll play with my settings, and not realizing that my ISO had to be a certain way, or my aperture needed to be a certain way, and I was just kind of like, I thought that, you know, it was just the light was going to do everything for me, you know what I'm saying? And it was just like, no. So that was the hardest thing. Another one, and it may not even be really photography related, the time. When you're formally trained, you know, you have a class and you have a time that you got to go and you know what you have to do. Whereas when you're self-taught, it's kind of like, and I need to find the time to go ahead and teach myself this. I have to find the time to sit down and do it, because if I don't, then, and I just keep going shooting, there's stuff that I'm missing, and now I'm missing out on, you know, how to be better and how to get better. And so then when I have to go back and do that, sometimes you feel like you're like too far gone, or not even too far gone, just behind the curve. Like you're just like, I should have already been knowing this, but I just couldn't find the time to do it. So.
Right, yeah, I feel the same way. It's like you get to a point where it's like, okay, I feel like I'm comfortable, I know enough, but then it's kind of like you say, you see somebody else do something, or you just like are kind of watching things and you like, wait, okay, so how do I get there? Like that's my next step? Okay, cool. So now you're like, how do I do that? So it's like, so the thing that I found weird, I don't know if this is like just a Jacksonville thing, but what's crazy is that I'm finding that there are more men photographers who are willing to help me than women, and I find that super weird. I don't know why, but I'm like, women as of creatives, like women, like I have no problem at all if somebody reached out to me and said, hey, you know, can you help me with this? Or like, you know what I'm saying? Like developing that kind of relationship with somebody, because it's like, I do want to know other photographers, and I do admire your work, and like, how can we, you know, benefit from each other? But it's like, I had moments where I reached out to a couple people, and it was like this awkward response of like, a lot of like, I don't know kind of thing. And so I get where you say like, I'm shy about reaching out for help, and then when you do reach out, it's kind of like, maybe not. So like being self-taught, like any photographers that I meet that are self-taught, I definitely have a respect for that, because it's hard. Like, no, we didn't go out and formally pay for a class to be formally taught, but we took the time to learn what we know and to craft, and that's important to us. Like, we hone our skills. So I honestly think that takes more of an endeavor and of a passion than somebody who goes to a classroom and just, you learn it. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, once you have the skills, ultimately, it's like your personality behind it, like your creativity behind it. So it's like, I don't care if you learn in a classroom or YouTube. Like, bring your personality to the game. You know?
Exactly.
So that's where I'm at about that. So right now, is photography full-time for you, or is it part-time?
It is part-time. I really am like just praying for the day where I can just like leave my regular job and look at photography and say, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But no, it is part-time. Unfortunately, it has been reduced to weekends when I'm able to find the time, or when I get, any bookings. But yes, it's something that it's a dream to like just be a full-time photographer and to just do nothing but wake up every day and shoot all the way until I go to sleep.
I know.
So that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm striving for. So.
And we're in the same boat. I feel the exact same way. Like the past 2 years have kind of like, I've had like this confidence boost in my work and like moving forward, and I'm just kind of ready too. I'm like, yeah, okay, I see this potential. Let's rock with it. Let's make it work.
Exactly.
Because it's like, you clock in at your job and that's all cool and fine. And not that like what I do at my job isn't something that I enjoy, but it's like ultimately that freedom of like, I want to be able to create what I want to create. I want to work with who I want to work with. And like if today I want to shoot all day and tomorrow I just want to be home and edit, I can do that, and there's
nothing stopping you.
Yeah, nothing stopping me from that.
Not a 9 to 5, just cutting in between all of that. I'm just like,
So when you are shooting your sessions, like what is it that kind of brings you the inspiration?
Honestly, if it's a session that I can have the creativity, it's honestly just wanting to be proud of myself. Like I've learned lately that's what's my inspiration is to, again, wow myself. Like I know how people look at my work, and I have other people who admire my work, and sometimes I don't even think about them. I think about myself, because along my photography journey, I did not know what I wanted to do for myself for a long time. And to know that one day I picked up a camera and said that this is what I want to do, and I haven't thought of quitting, walking away. I haven't thought of like wanting to give up. Although there are challenges, I just could never fully tell myself like, I'm not going to do this no more. So my inspiration comes from just wanting to make myself happy and wanting to prove to myself that like, you're on the right path. This is what you want to do. This is what you love. So when I come up with the concept, I always think in the back of my mind, well, how is my future self going to love this? What is my future self going to say when I see this? And so that's where a lot of my inspiration comes from. That's actually the first thing I think about is how is my future self going to be happy with what I'm doing? Because I owe it to my past self to continue to be better, continue to be greater. So every shoot that I do, I always tell myself this has to be better than the next one, so my future self can be like, you did that.
Speaking of inspiration, who are like 1 or 2 other photographers that currently like inspire you?
Oh, okay. So that is actually I'm gonna start with Raven B. She shot with Jay-Z, Beyonce, J. Cole. Like she's just such a talented person. Then I have to also go with, just to bring it back home, I don't know if you're aware, LRK Marquise, LRK Chronicle.
Yeah.
Yes, his work, he is like a brother to me. We're actually born a day apart.
Oh, wow.
But his work, he's just always progressing, and like, it doesn't even feel like a competition. It just really feels like motivation every time we work together. I'm always working with him, and I love working with him because I feel like that's where a lot of the motivation comes from. Just being around his energy and everything. And also you. I've actually been following your photography for a while, and just seeing how like you're progressed and gotten better, just really like it sparks a lot of like, again, motivation and inspiration to just be like, dang, y'all are really doing it. Because I don't feel like I'm that photographer who's like really out and about. I feel like I'm like that low-key photographer that's like just pops up with a photo. But a lot of the local photographers here, Mount Jax, Rockinism, like those are just like really dope photographers, and they really ebony. Like everybody here really not even big time photographers really give me the inspiration, because it's just kind of like, y'all already made it, you know what I'm saying? Like, and, you know, I'm trying to get there, but like the people that are around me that motivate me to be better and to motivate me to want to step outside my comfort zone. You know, I remember when I first started, I was just kind of like, I'm not gonna really do any extreme things, and I'm watching all these photographers around me just doing amazing things, and I was like, yep. they inspire me to not think on a basic level with photography. You know what I'm saying? To see it for more than what people assume. You know, everybody nowadays just wants that basic photo where they're just like, you know, they rather pull out their iPhone and stuff like that. These photographers inspire me to be like, use your colors, use your areas, use your scenes, use your models, different shapes. You know, don't just think one way with photography, because it's so much more. So all these people that I've mentioned have basically are a big inspiration. It's sometimes I'll be in a shoot, and if not one, all of them will pop in my head and be like, you know, let me think about what they did to bring in the motivation and stuff like that, even the inspiration. So yes.
Oh, awesome. So based on those photographers who have inspired you, what advice would you give to someone else who is kind of like just starting out, or like they're just kind of experimenting with photography, not sure where it's gonna go, but they're like in that, you know, experimental phase?
At first I would say keep shooting. I remember when I took that class a while ago with Greg Bell and Blue Francois, I remember hearing Greg say to somebody, I went out and I shot every day. He's like, I took my camera with me everywhere I went. And at first I was like, I have a job, man. I can't do this. You know, I can't. But I remember one day I took my camera to work, and I was just shooting. And I shot something, and people at my job were like, this is great. And so I was like, I'm just going to keep shooting. So I would always say keep shooting. Don't compare yourself.
That's a good one.
Cut off the comparisons. Don't look at someone and be like, I want to be like them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll even let as far as say, how can I be as good as them? Or how can I get to, you know, the level of their thinking? But don't, I want to be like, or I want to shoot just like that person. No, you're your own person. You know, like you said earlier, personality comes in photography. Personality plays a big part in it. And if you have the same personality as someone, then I could understand. But we're different. You know what I'm saying? We have different eyes. We see things differently. We know what we like. It's not all the same. So don't compare yourself. Cut out the comparisons. Go in and not even think about, well, I want to do what this person does. No. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, people always assume that, you know, if I'm not good like this person, when people want to book me, they're going to want work like them. If they want work like that person, they'll go to that person. Right. So, and just continue to do your research. You know what I'm saying? Don't think of photography as just one way, and it's always going to be one way. The world changes, you know, and the way we see the world changes. So continue to research. Continue to keep an open mind about things. Don't just, you know, cut yourself off because you're just like, that's not gonna ever look good. You never know. You know what I'm saying? So just keep shooting, don't compare, just keep an open mind.
Okay. Have you ever dealt with like imposter syndrome while with photography? All
the time.
Right.
All the time. When people will come, and when I have my moments where I'll take a photo and I'm not really 100% satisfied with it. My future self is like, oh, you did a good job, but you know, you could have did a little better. And then I'll show somebody and they'll be like, this is amazing. And I was like, what? And, you know, sometimes I always, you know, break it down, and it was like, well, you know, especially if they're not like a photographer, and they're like, well, you know, you don't see what I see because we don't. And then, but I deal with it a lot, all the time. I always deal with it when somebody wants to book with me. I'm like, me?
Right, you have that second guess. You're like, really, me?
Yeah, me? And they're like, yeah, well, you know, every time somebody can be like, yeah, I want to work with you. You know, what's your pricing and when are you available? And I was like, whoop. You got the right photographer, because like my, you know, I'm not much of the face of my photography Instagram, so I'm just like, this is Ava, you know, so I get that a lot. I still don't know how to deal with it. I'm just like, hey, I don't know what to do. I mean, like, I know that I'm good. I can recognize that I'm good, but I cannot recognize that other people recognize that I'm good.
Right.
So I'm just like, yeah, so yeah, we'll go ahead and do this. And I need to learn how to deal with it, because that's what brings out the nerves every time I do a shoot, when somebody wants to work with me, because I feel like I have to not only be perfect for myself, but now I have to be perfect for somebody else.
Right.
So, like I said, I have my inspiration to make myself, my future self, happier, but sometimes I have to also think about the other person, and now I'm just like, if this isn't good, they're not gonna, you know, like,
Right.
they're like, if they see something that I've done and I don't bring that forth into the shoot, they'll be like, well, what happened to this? So
I have that same thought. That's so crazy. Like, I have that same thought. Like, whenever I work with somebody new and I'm like, oh gosh, they've looked at my work, so I got to make sure, like, it has to be like the same level. Like, I can't slack at all.
Right.
And like, it is like that nerve when you're like first starting the session and you're getting ready to shoot. And like, what I have to do is like, I just go into this mode of like, hey, this is just a couple test shots, you know, just talking them through the first couple shots, and then it's like, okay, when I talk to them more, like the nerves kind of go down. I'll be like, okay, girl, do it. Like, you got it. Like,
Right.
they're here, you here, they wanted you, it's paid for.
Right.
Like, let's do this. Let's do this thing. But then to me, it's like that's a sign of just being humble about it too, because you never think like, oh, I'm this or I'm that, like whatever, because there's always room for improvement.
Always.
There's always gonna be somebody better. So it's like, I arrived, who? Not me. Like, I'm just here.
Right.
Me and you. So, if you weren't a photographer, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't a photographer, I would probably be an author. That's really that. Yeah,
Really?
It's a little hidden secret about me. I love to write.
Awesome.
So I would probably be writing a book.
What do you write? Like fiction, poetry?
I used to do poetry, but then I one day just woke up and was like, I don't like being this deep 24/7. But no, I write like fiction. I'm very big on like love stories and stuff like that. Yeah, I it was funny growing up. I wanted to be an author. Then I was like, I'm gonna do graphic design, and I was like, I'm not really feeling graphic design no more. So I went back to writing, and then right as I was going, like was like, I'm gonna be a writer and I'm gonna start writing, photography came. So, but yeah, I think that I would be writing.
Oh wow, that's kind of cool. I love people who write. Listen, I just love creative people, but like I write too on the side. I write too on the side. So I've dabbled in like poetry, a lot of fiction, but I also am finding now. So I blog.
Oh yeah.
So I'm finding now that I kind of want, like when I'm writing now, it's more towards like everyday life stuff, like just life lessons of like, I don't know, I've always had this thing of like wanting to leave something behind, whether it's like photography, whether it's something that I've wrote. I'm just like, maybe somebody will find it one day, I don't know. But just like wanting people to know like what was it like during this time, or to read something or to see a picture and like be encouraged, or experience a moment that maybe they weren't there for, but they can take something away from it for themselves. So, man, the question for you is, where can people find you if they want to see your work, they want to book you?
So they can book me at PhotosbyCloudz.com. They can see my work on my Instagram, PhotosbyCloudz, Facebook, PhotosbyCloudz. I do tend to update my Twitter. So that's Ava, or it's VA, because a little @ symbol, VA, the cool kid. On Twitter, I do post my work on there sometimes, but mostly, if you really want to get like more recent, you know, I would suggest going to my website or my Instagram.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you for being a part of this. You're my first guest. I hope
so
that
much
there are
fun.
like many more, but I definitely enjoyed interviewing you, and it turns out we have a lot more in common, which is kind of cool to find out. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope we'll be back with another episode. Bye.